After setting the initial balance in a mix, there are 3 goals that I pursue to get a song from this into this. In this video, I show you how I reach for these goals using the Ozone suite and some baby audio wizardry, getting creative along the way. Let's go! So the song that I'm using here as an example is mixed to my liking. If you want to do your own version of this mix, go grab the stems and the Logic Pro session at topphotic.com/stems. It's absolutely free. Go get it. Now, first off, let's take a bird's eye view on the mix. We can start at the bottom here. We have the master and a mix bus. We have the effects bus. We have a drum bus, the bass bus, and the instrument bus. And here comes the individual tracks. So we have a kick and a bass, we have a clap, open and closed hats, and a couple of drum loops, one which is more drummy and one bongo loop. Then we have the instruments folder, which consists of some keys panned to the left and the right. You can see here a synth and a pad and some vocal chops, some loops. And you can see that I've tweaked the channels here to my liking. I had a synth and a pad that I didn't think fitted into the mix, so I have just muted them or turned down the volume on those. We have some level differences here that I've just tweaked to taste, and we have some paneration on the higher frequency elements of the drums, and we have some paneration of the keys, which is the main melody element. So that's the bird's eye view. And now the first goal for my mix is to create separation so that the tracks can shine in the mix, not by themselves, but in the context of the mix. And I'm doing a top-down approach here, which means that I'll start with the bus and I'll move backwards. Let me show you right here. So I have started with the master bus actually, and I have inserted an EQ, looks like this. And you see that I have boosted the highs quite a bit, almost 2 decibels. And then I have increased a bit in the lower mid-range at 288 Hertz by 1.8 actually. And then I have a slight bell dip down in the 40 Hertz region. This created a bit more separation in the mix, and you can listen with and without. Without first. A bit more open and a bit more clear. Okay, next up on the bus here I have boosted the lower mid-range from approximately 300 to 3K. With and without first. Listen. It was a bit too much of a smiley curve initially, so I have treated that by boosting. Moving on, a couple of other examples of getting more clarity in the mix and more separation. Listen to the kick. As the first processor on the kick, I have an imager. And what I've done here is I've boosted lower mids from 100 Hertz and up until 1.5K. I've widened the kick to make it stand out more. So listen with and without. It's actually a mono sound, but I have created some artificial stereo field around the kick to make the kick even more full sounding down there in the low end. Everything below 100 Hertz is unaffected by this processor. Okay, moving on the kick, I have something called the Impact, and this is sort of like the SPL Transynthesizer on steroids with multiband. So this is like a Christmas tree of envelope shapers. So I've boosted the subs a bit. There should be more punch to the subs right here. So because the click on the kick is perfect, but the subs was a bit lifeless. So I've blown some life into the sub of the kick. Listen to this. Bit more juice to the subs and the kick. When it comes to the imager, I've done more or less the same with the bass. Listen to this with and without. Again, only affecting everything above 200 Hertz approximately. Next up, so here we have something called the Exciter. It's sort of like the FabFilter Saturn 2. It's basically a saturation plugin. And in this case, what this does is bring out the bass a bit more in the mix, making it more present by saturating certain bands. What I like about this is that I can choose, I can select bands again. So here I have selected everything about 100 Hertz and all the way up to 1.5. And I found that the tape setting sounded the best, but there are many choices here. So you're spoiled for choice. And I've used the mix dial to dial it back to 35.9. You can just listen with and without first. Let's listen to it in solo. So I don't like it when it's too overdone, but a little goes a long way. And on the bongo loop, I have done something similar. I have used the stereo imager to boost the highs a bit, making it more present and all powerful. Listen with it and without. So these were some examples of what I've done to create some separation and more clarity in the mix. And I think that I'm approaching the goal of creating separation. I don't know if I'm all the way there, but at least as close as I can come, using some bit untraditional approaches. And it's really fun to experiment with these plugins right here because there's so many things to do with these modules right here. So let's move over to the next goal that I have with every mix that I do, and that's creating some mix glue. Creating mix glue is kind of the opposite of the first goal, which was to create separation and clarity. Now I want to glue everything back together. So I'll go back to the master bus, to the final channel in the chain, and I've inserted something called the stabilizer. What it does is sort of taming some transients. I have this preset here called soften transients, and I wanted to smooth things out a bit. The transients were a bit sharp, so I've reined those transients in a bit, creating some glue, I guess, and not by much. This plugin, the stabilizer, sort of resembles the Soothe 2 from Oak Sound, and it's sort of like the Baby Audio Smooth Operator. It's the same playground that we're in here, so I guess this is iZotope's take on those types of plugins, which is not an EQ, not a compressor, but it suppresses certain frequencies in an intelligent way. Anyways, you can listen with and without, see what you think. A bit more balance, I guess. Next up, some more glue spectral shaper. And I use this to just clean up the sub frequencies a bit, both the kick and the bass and everything else that has some information below 100 Hertz or so. So actually this goes from 40 and down, so it's really the subs. But you know, you can have also some elements flirting with the sub 40 frequency range. You just want to suppress everything just by a little. No, without and with. Bit smoother, bit more glued. This is the impact. Again, I am expanding the lower mids and I am slightly reducing the higher mids and the highs and the subs by a bit more on the subs. So listen with and without. Actually here I'm compensating for what I did with the kick, with the impact, and here I am then decreasing a bit again, but not by as much as I increased with the kick, but I've reined in the kick a bit. And the next plugin, and this is a brand new module in iZotope 11, and it's called the Hit the Like button. No, but seriously, it's the low end focus. I have used this to smoothen out the low end a bit, and I like the results. Listen with and without. You really have to have some good headphones to listen to the differences here, or some nice subwoofers in your studio. And a really neat function is that you can hit the delta button, and since this lives on the mix bus or the last bus in the chain, it shows you what it's doing. This is a new feature in Ozone 11 that I like. That you can you can really hear what you're doing, and I miss this in a lot of plugins, that you can hear what exactly are you affecting with the plugin. Next up, we have the maximizer. I'm using this not as a limiter, I'm using it as an upward compressor. This is a new function also in the Ozone 11. Listen with and without. And I've used the transient emphasis. Listen with and without the transient emphasis. Do you agree that there's more punch in the percussion when I engage the transient emphasis? I think so, at least. And then finally, I have the vintage limiter. I've turned off true peak. I have a ceiling on -2, and the analog fitted best here. The tube and the modern didn't fit the bill. It was analog for this one, and this does a slight gain reduction. So the first goal was creating separation, the second goal was to glue it together, and the third goal is to create some movement in the mix. So I have automated some plugins and some channels. Now, first off, I made some volume automations. Look at this. On the mix bus, for example, this is a classic trick, just to automate the level of the mix bus by 1 decibel or so before the drop. Listen to this. Everything goes down by 1 decibel or so, and I've done some similar stuff when it comes to panning. So I have panned some instruments, for example the bongo loop, which lives on the right side of the mix. The bongo loop just moves over to the other channel just for some interest. I guess it's called air candy. And then comes the magic, the baby audio wizardry that I promised to talk about. I have 2 transits on the instrument bus. So the first transit does some sweetness in the beginning of the song. It's called the echo folder, and it has some delays and some filters and such. And this is the main control. So using this will turn up everything in this plugin. And there are many modules over here, and you can always add new modules. And then we have some interesting stuff, some lifters and some downers, I guess it's called. And the first one is this on the mix bus. Let's see. It creates a noise sweep, which is the classical transitional effect. And the other transit I have here is downfall or downer, or what do you call it? It's the opposite of a lifter, and it goes like this. And if you go crazy with it, it sounds like a laser effect, but when you do it with a slope like this, nice. So here we have some movement. The one standard vanilla movement that I got here is on the kick-bass relationship, and the kick and the bass never hits at the same time, but I have done it so that the kick affects the bass anyways. So I've inserted a stock compressor on the bass, and with the kick as an insert, fast attack, fast release. The sustain of the kick will bleed into the bass, creating for a bit more groove. And I'll just solo the kick and bass for this. $10 decibels of gain reduction on that one. That was what sounded good. So those were the 3 goals: creating separation, creating glue, and creating movement. And when you have those 3 components, the mix will sound good. And if you like videos like this, you might want to check out one of these videos. And I hope I see you again. Peace!